Napa know-how.
A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
It's the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast with the Enforcer.
I believe they're called enforcers, Gordon. I sell women's shoes.
And the Stallion.
Stallion, baby! I am not what you would call a handsome man.
I'll kick you in the nuts and you'll smile at me and like it.
Oh, nice!
Well, welcome once again, everyone, to an episode of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast, Thursday, May the 25th, 2017. And this is the Stallion coming live from my cave in Long Island, New York. And I believe we have the one and only Enforcer on the line with me. Are you there, buddy?
I feel like life has beat its L on me.
Well, you know what, my friend? Like the great Phil Collins once said, it's just another day in paradise right now.
Oh, it's something, pal. It is something, I'll tell you that much.
Well, listen, buddy, we got a lot to talk about this week, I think, right? I mean, there was a lot of stuff last weekend. We talked about on our show last week.
Yep.
There was some Backlash action. There was some NXT action. And we all have a new WWE champion.
Well, he's a young man who today actually just got his first T-shirt. I'm sure BK has it already. He's the modern-day Maharaja. And I hear it's actually selling pretty well in Ohio, out of all places. Very weird.
The Buckeye State. Yeah, that's he's popular there. Do you think, am I uncultured by the fact that I don't know what Maharaja means?
No, I think it means, holy shit, what have we done in Farsi?
Okay. That's I'll have to do a Google Translate on that at some point. I probably should have done that in preparation for the show, so I dropped the ball on that one. But I guess just in terms of that, if we start with that, since that seems to have been the hottest button topic of the last few days ever since Sunday, I don't know that I really believed it would happen personally. I thought there was a chance, like when these types of pushes happen out of nowhere, kind of. I've seen, there's been examples in the past, and I'm sure we can name a few things. Like JBL is one, I think, example where you kind of get a singles push out of nowhere for a guy who doesn't really have a whole lot of experience in that category, and then whether it's Vince McMahon or somebody just decides to go all the way with the push, and give the guy a championship. So I think I thought there was a chance it could happen, but I didn't really believe that it would. So as I was sitting and watching Backlash on Sunday night, I was pretty surprised at the end of the WWE title match. What were your thoughts on that? Did you think that they would actually pull the trigger on this?
Maharaja is a Sanskrit title for great ruler, great king, or high king. The female equivalent, the Maharani, denotes either the wife of a Maharaja or a woman ruling in her own right. So that's what Google brings to the table there. So he's the great ruler, the great king. I think it makes sense. Good for him. He's got a shirt. I'm sure he's going to sell dozens. I think watching the show, I kind of did. I really kind of. Randy Orton was flatter than 2-day-old Dr. Pepper as a champion, and I don't think he was doing any. He's also a guy that doesn't really. He hasn't done anything since the Bray Wyatt feud. But also, if you look at the WWE title, I think it started with Bray Wyatt, AJ, John Cena, Bray Wyatt. Then it went to Randy. Now it's on Jinder. All since what, December? Am I off base on that?
Yeah, AJ had won it in September of last year and held it until January. So he had it in January, lost to Cena at the Rumble. Cena then lost it 2 weeks later at Elimination Chamber to Bray Wyatt. Wyatt then lost it, whatever it was, like 4 to 5 weeks later at WrestleMania. And then I guess in the end, Orton really only probably had it for about 6 weeks himself, since the first weekend in April until this past weekend when he lost it to Jinder. So yeah, it's changed a good amount of times already in 2017.
So I can't imagine. I just read something that said they think Jinder is a long-term champion. I think that would be surprising to me if that was the case. I guess the question is who's next. I know they're going to do a Randy Orton rematch, which I don't think anybody's looking forward to seeing. But you have the Money in the Bank coming up, and I wouldn't be surprised to see whoever wins the Money in the Bank cash it in that night.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. The funny thing is, I remember I was reading. I try to read some of the dirt sheet stuff. I don't want to get too caught up in it when I do, but the days leading up to Backlash, so like last weekend, I was reading things like Vince McMahon sees Randy Orton as a long-term champion for SmackDown, and he treats him the same way as he treats Roman Reigns. And Orton is not scheduled to lose the title anytime soon. He'll have it through at least the summer and all this stuff. And then literally like 2 days later, he drops it to Jinder Mahal at Backlash, which was unexpected. The one thing that's somewhat interesting, I guess, is that the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which is the next one for SmackDown, is taking place in St. Louis, which is Randy Orton's hometown. So normally most guys lose in their hometown, but I don't know, do you think that means anything as far as Randy getting a rematch in his hometown? Do you think he's just going to win it right back and they'll give up on this Jinder thing, or do you think they're actually going to have it stay on Jinder for a few months?
I hope not. I think leave it on Jinder until somebody else wins it at Money in the Bank. Or unless you're going to have Randy win it for a great feel-good moment, and then maybe Kevin Owens come out, cash in on him, and then he's your new champion. That could be something they could do. I also just read. I also don't read the dirt sheets. I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. And if I go on 411 and I see another erectile dysfunction ad again, I'm going to break my laptop. So
yeah,
that's one thing.
Brutal.
But I just read that the plan was for Rusev to win the title and win Money in the Bank. But once he got hurt or he wasn't cleared to come back, they switched it last second. They put it on Jinder, so that was pretty interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. Yeah, the whole thing with Rusev is a little curious too. Not to go off on a different angle, but I think 2 weeks ago he had proclaimed that he was going to come to SmackDown and kind of confront Shane McMahon because he was demanding a title opportunity and all of that, and he just didn't show up. That was a little weird. So he hasn't been on SmackDown the last 2 weeks. There hasn't really been much explanation for that, and I don't really know if that maybe that was the plan, was to put him in the title picture or win the title, and they just decided to change course or whatever, and now maybe they don't know what to do with Rusev. I'm not sure.
I think that's probably the case too. I mean, I don't know if there was an injury setback with Rusev that they're not talking about right now, but I feel like Vince McMahon is so out of touch culturally. He probably thinks Rusev and Jinder are both from Russia, and he could just interchange them.
He may very well be. That may be the case. Now, one thing I was looking at, and not to be like I said, not a non-dirt sheet item, was the ratings. And I was looking at an article on ratings because those are concrete statistics and information to just kind of see what the ratings were like for SmackDown, at least over the last few months, right? So when they first went live back last year. Ratings went up. Obviously, at that point, there was a draft episode that had taken place, and they then just split the rosters. And there was some pretty exciting stuff going on for SmackDown. But like at the beginning of this year to now were numbers I wanted to see, right? Because at the beginning of the year, you have AJ Styles, you have John Cena, all these things happening, right? Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania. And now after WrestleMania, now you're kind of settling into some things. And I wanted to see like what impact Jinder Mahal's title reign would have on things. So just very quickly looking at some of the numbers in terms of viewership for SmackDown. In January, SmackDown was hovering around the 2.5 to 2.6 million range of viewers, right? After the Rumble, they had a little bit of a spike. February, same type of thing, 2.6, 2.7 million viewers. Again, March, same thing, up a little bit, closer to 2.7 million on average. WrestleMania, the Tuesday after WrestleMania, they got up to about 2.9 million. And then they had the Superstar Shakeup episode, which was a little bit over 3 million. That was their peak for the year. So immediately after that, April 18th episode, which I believe it was that show, if not the show right after that, where Jinder Mahal won the six-pack challenge to become the number one contender. And the ratings immediately nosedive. The viewership goes down to 2.5 million to 2.3 million to 2.1 million last week, and then back to 2.3 this week. So to me, that shows people are not interested in the Jinder Mahal main event push, right? And that's how I would take that, right? The viewership of the overall shows has gone down ever since he's been featured in the main event. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's really the only way to look at it. And usually the shows, correct me if I'm wrong here, I know the post pay-per-view shows are high rated. Are the go-home shows usually equally as high in the rating?
I don't know. I think it's like you said. I think it's more the post pay-per-view shows that are like kind of get a little bit of a spike. You know, like after the Rumble, after WrestleMania, things like that. The go-home shows, I think, ideally they would get a little bit of a boost, but in this kind of era where the ratings are kind of at an all-time low, essentially, I don't think they really get too much of a spike for those. But it just like they got a little bit of a bump this week. It went from like 2.1 million was their low for the year, and then this week they went back up to 2.3. But it's still well below the 2.5, 2.6 million viewer range that they had when AJ was on top and Cena was on top, and the Wyatt Orton feud was kind of at a point where it was still interesting to people. But I don't know. That's kind of how I take it. They put him in the main event, and that's really, I think, the biggest thing that moves the needle as far as viewership goes, right? People want to see who the champion is and what the main feud is on the show. And the Jinder Randy Orton feud is not lighting the world on fire, I would say.
No, but the only problem with that is, too, then you're also focusing on guys like Nakamura, AJ Styles, and Kevin Owens. And if they're, I wonder how much blame, quote-unquote, Vince gives them for those low numbers, too. Do you think it's equally as much as the main event, or is it kind of more main event or does it secondary?
Yeah, that's a good point, too. I mean, this week, SmackDown's main event was, I think it was AJ Styles and Nakamura versus Kevin Owens and Dolph Ziggler, which was kind of a longest match. But I don't know if that had an impact on the ratings or not. I wonder if they do feel like that's an issue. But I don't know. It's, to me, I think it's just when you look at stuff, at least in the past, right, in years past, it was always kind of focused on who the champion was and how they draw, right? Are they a draw? So Jinder just won the title last week. Maybe we need to give him a little time to see if maybe the ratings will swing back up or how he performs. It'll be interesting to see how long, I guess, they give him, as far as that opportunity is concerned,
I wonder how long the leash is going to be. Like you said, I mean, there's everything I read today, and for some reason I read the dirt sheets today. It said they have it pretty much booked through SummerSlam, and then now they're kind of just filling time. That's not good. If you're filling time, why aren't you building, more important, third level and fourth level angles? Like, I kind of like what they did on Raw this week. I guess it just happened to grow a little bit. I like what they did with Goldust. I think, that finally gave his character. The guy's he's been everywhere and he's done everything, and it's not an A, a B. It may even not even be a C. It's like a D level it's a D-level topic, I guess you could say, but it's something different in that, Goldust has been not a joke, but he's been, a space filler, I guess you could say, and now they're kind of doing something with him. So I think that's I think it's important to build interest throughout the card instead of just having opening match between a 3.5 minute opening match, 2 minute opening match, a 3 minute opening match. You have different storylines that people are going to get behind. I mean, of course, they're not going to get behind the Titus brand as much as they're going to, like a Dean Ambrose Miz feud. But it's important to have some continuity there and give people a reason to watch those.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like character development, even for somebody like a Goldust who, like you said, hadn't really been treated that importantly for a long time. Yeah, I think he had that little promo that he did backstage, like the older Goldust character. It's more interesting, right? At least it's kind of like, oh, they're kind of maybe doing something with him, even though he's into his mid-40s and he's going to be maybe feuding with R-Truth. But he at least it made him a little bit more interesting of a character. So I think the thing with Mahal, I guess, just to kind of close out my thoughts on him, is just that I don't really know as far as a character is concerned, right? Like what's Jinder Mahal's deal, right? He's just kind of coming out and saying that people are persecuting him or they don't like him just because of the way that he looks and the way he talks. I don't know. They've done angles like that before, right? With different wrestlers that are from different countries that are not the United States or Canada. But, I think it's just one of those things where historically people view him as, essentially a jobber or enhancement talent. He's not had a push to any sort of level where he should be taken legitimately. And now all of a sudden he is getting these wins over some like mid-card level guys. And now he's the champion out of nowhere. And I think when you don't at least give a guy a little bit of a build-up and a backstory, it's difficult to do. Like I wouldn't have minded if they wanted to give him a push and give him the United States title, right? Like that angle kind of writes itself. Obviously he's a foreigner. He's playing up the gimmick of being a foreigner and how Americans don't like him. So maybe put the United States title on him and give him a run with that, right? And then kind of have an anti-America thing for him for a while and see if he gets legit heat and and then if he improves in the ring as a character, and at that point maybe you can give him a more main event level push if you feel like that's the way to go. But instead they just push him right to the main event, the WWE title, and then he wins it right away. And I think that's what maybe drives some people away or causes people to question him. That's just kind of I guess where I land on Jinder right now.
Didn't Mojo Rawley beat him clean like 3 times?
Yes, yeah. I mean, he lost to Mojo a couple times. I believe there was some Rob Gronkowski shenanigans involved with that. That was his last major thing that he did. I mean, before that, he was basically just used as an enhancement talent on Raw since he returned to the company.
So if you're a guy like Mojo Rawley and you're watching this and you're like, man, I tried a feud with this guy, I beat him pretty clean, and then all of a sudden he's your world champion, it's probably a tough pill to swallow considering, Mojo isn't even on TV. But the only thing I will say is they built him up with the Singh brothers, so he's doing it the way a bad guy, villainous, not good enough to do it on his own kind of heel should. So I don't know. It's you know what? I'll give him credit on the fact that it is something different, but it was questionable who they decided, and not for nothing. Remember last time Muhammad Hassan, and they had a bunch of quote-unquote terrorists and hoods attack Undertaker? And then wasn't there some sort of, or a terrorist attack, or like something terrible happened, like a beheading the next week, and then they dropped the gimmick?
Yeah, I believe that's pretty much almost exactly what happened. They had some sort of angle taped on SmackDown where he was like choking out Undertaker, and around that time, some sort of a terrorist attack or issue had occurred, and the network that carried SmackDown at the time basically just decided that they didn't want Muhammad Hassan on TV anymore. So I believe he did a job to Undertaker at the next pay-per-view and never appeared again after that. So they need to be careful, obviously, with what they're doing here. But maybe he'll be over in India. Like he is kind of basically playing his character up where like he would be very popular in India. So I'd be curious if they have a show in India at some point while he's the champion. I don't know what their schedule is like, but if they do, I'd be curious to see what kind of reaction he gets there.
Yeah, apparently I watched the other day, he got a babyface promo for India. So, I guess he's kind of like not necessarily a Kevin Owens who kind of buries everywhere he goes. So, he's an international face and an American heel. I guess you could sell merchandise that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. They did that with Bret Hart right back in '97 when he had turned and reformed the Hart Foundation and had the stable, right? Like he was basically a babyface in Canada, but a heel in the United States, which I thought was pretty interesting at the time. The way that they did that, I thought it was a pretty neat angle, and it made for some pretty interesting reactions depending on where their shows were.
Yeah, and then you had Shawn Michaels, who was, the bad guy face here, and then he went over to Canada, and he was like, he was the devil himself. So I guess it'll be interesting. But then, you know what? I guess you got to give it time, let the angle air out, as they say, and then see what they do with the Money in the Bank. Because the Money in the Bank really could change everything.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. So I guess just figuring it last weekend. Backlash was obviously Sunday, but Saturday night, NXT had their takeover show in Chicago. 5 matches on the card. I thought there was some pretty significant things coming out of the show, right? I mean, there's only 5 matches, so I guess we can kind of quickly just give our thoughts on some of them. The opener was Roderick Strong beating Eric Young, which I know we both predicted Roddy winning. I think that was the right call. I thought they had a good match, and the crowd was pretty behind Roddy, I thought, in Chicago.
Yeah, he came out like a quote-unquote house of fire. And I don't think there's anybody, more aggressive in the ring than Roderick Strong. And not to, speaking of tragedies, not to compare him to somebody, but he has that very Chris Benoit-like intensity in the ring. When his moves are fast, his moves are calculated. He delivers them with such intensity, and it makes it so realistic. And EY played up the great heel in this match, and I think Roddy started off by taking out Damo and Alexander Wolf. So, and that whole story was Roddy versus the world. That's his gimmick, and that's what he did in this match. So I thought it was a really hot opener. EY hitting his wheelbarrow neck breaker on the outside was a pretty brutal spot.
Yeah, I think, and I agree with your point. I think, Roddy, when you watch him, he kind of moves at a different speed, I feel like, than a lot of these guys, right? Like it's just his I don't know what you want to call it, his adrenaline, like the way that he does his stuff in the ring just seems like he's in a different gear than everybody. So I thought the match was good. I was glad that he got a clean victory over EY. So I think that was the right call. The next match was basically the match that seemed to steal the weekend, I guess, for lack of a better term. It was the Tyler Bate defending the UK Championship against Pete Dunne. These guys worked for, looks like about 15 or 16 minutes or so of action. Pete Dunne won the match, won the United Kingdom Championship. But this match was, I think, the best match on this show and the best match of the weekend for WWE purposes. I was not expecting this level of a match personally from these. Not that these guys couldn't deliver it. I know that they could, but I wasn't expecting all the crazy moves and high spots that they did. It was really, a show stealer, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it actually kind of makes me more excited to watch some of the WWE UK programming on the network.
Yeah, I wasn't too familiar with Tyler Bate, to be honest with you. Pete Dunne, the bruiserweight, I've seen him work before. I've seen him, I've watched both these guys in the UK Championship, but I wasn't familiar with Tyler Bate, and I had no idea he was capable of half the stuff he did. I believe he hit a spiral tap off the top rope, which I didn't expect. There were some really, really stiff-looking moves, and that was somewhere between the UK style mixed with the NXT style mixed with like the Japanese strong style. Lots of suplexes. I believe at one point he did a deadlift exploder suplex, which just takes so much strength. And Pete Dunne's going to be a star. There's no two ways about it. Those two guys combined are like my age, which is pathetic, and I don't want to wake up tomorrow. But those guys have such a bright future, and I think it was the right move. You and I, again, we both predicted this one. We both predicted Pete Dunne taking the title, because I feel like, we need Tyler Bate in a kind of a chased mode, and I think that's what we're going to get now.
Yeah, I think it was the right thing to do, right thing time to make the switch. But like you said, I mean, Bate, who I didn't know much about before watching the initial UK tournament, the kid who was like 19, 20 years old, performing in front of Chicago crowd, in one of the big, I guess bigger wrestling cities in the country. And these guys just had a killer match with like no botches, like no issues, just all sorts of great stuff. So I'm looking forward to a rematch from these guys at some point, whenever that does occur. Asuka defeated Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross in a triple threat match. This match, it wasn't bad, I think, but it wasn't really at the level of some of the other Asuka matches that she's had on the last few Takeover shows. I thought her match with Ember Moon was better. I thought her match with Mickie James was better. The matches she had with Bayley were better than this. I don't know. I guess Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross are relatively new to the women's division in NXT, so I'm not saying that they weren't deserving of a title shot here, because that's totally fine. I just don't know that the triple threat dynamic really worked that well here. But Asuka ended up basically kind of doing her normal thing and finding a way to win, and she retained the NXT Women's Championship in this match.
Yeah, I also think this match suffered having to follow the UK title. No matter what, these people, no matter what anybody on the show was going to do, they weren't going to follow that match, so that maybe took a little bit of luster away. I thought they did a pretty good job building up the suspense throughout the match, and I thought Ruby Riott was really going to get the win. But Asuka, she became the longest reigning undefeated champion, just passing Goldberg. And funny enough, she posted it today, and then Scott Hall replied and said, "You're better than Goldberg ever was." So I got a kick out of that.
That's pretty awesome. So I guess we'll see. I think it's really setting up or leading to her against Ember Moon again. Maybe at the next Takeover special. I don't know if that's going to be the Brooklyn show in August. I'm assuming that's the next scheduled one right now. That seems to be the next direction for her. So we'll see if maybe that's finally the spot where she loses and loses the title that she's held for well over a year. But we'll be interesting to see if how she gets there and if that's the direction that they go. NXT Championship match was next, so it actually did not main event the show. Bobby Roode defeated Hideo Itami in about 18 minutes. This was Itami coming back from another injury, and it was his first match back, first feud back. They put him right into the NXT Championship title picture. I thought that it was a pretty good match from these guys. It was probably Itami's best singles match in NXT that I can recall. I thought Roode had a good performance here. He's kind of been tagged as a guy who's maybe underperformed a little bit in the ring in NXT. So I won't say that this match was like a classic or anything, but I thought that they did a good job with it. It was probably, like I said, one of Itami's best matches and probably one of Roode's better matches in NXT, and Roode retains and keeps the title.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. I don't think it was, a show stealer by any means, but I think it was each guy's most impressive singles match so far in NXT. A lot of really close false finishes. They told a really good story of Itami kind of trying to throw everything at him, and Roode still, being the bad guy, doing the bad guy things and getting the win. There was an interesting part where after the match, Itami went to the back and he kind of was throwing stuff all over the place, and he wound up getting Chris Hero in space. So you're probably going to see Itami versus Chris Hero the next Takeover, I would think.
Yeah, that seems to be how it's looking. It looks like they're kind of either turning Itami heel or giving him a little bit of an edge with that. And I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. He hasn't really connected with the fans very much since he's come over to NXT the last couple of years. I mean, part of that might just be due to injury and the time that he's missed. But I don't think that a heel turn would be a bad thing for him to kind of give him a fresh start. So yeah, that would be a good match, I think, if those guys have him and Hero matched up. And the main event ended up being the ladder match for the NXT Tag Team Championships. It was the Authors of Pain against DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Again, these guys, it was a good match. I think any match that has DIY in it is pretty much almost guaranteed to be good, if not great, anytime that they're in the ring. They had some cool spots with the ladders. They did like stereo dives from the outer the ring post to the outside of the floor with each Authors of Pain laying on a ladder. There was a spot where Ciampa gave one of the Authors of Pain a suplex off a ladder through a ladder that was laying in the ring that kind of basically snapped in half. So some pretty crazy good spots there. And the end was DIY almost had the tag titles hanging from the belts, and Authors of Pain basically caught them and did that super collider powerbomb finish move that they do. Took both the DIY out and retrieved the titles. And I guess as far as the match goes, I thought it was really good match. I think there's been not the best ladder match or anything I've ever seen, but they had some innovative spots, and I think DIY puts good matches together. And then the story coming out of it, obviously, at the end is, as the show was about to go off the air, Tommaso Ciampa turned on Gargano as they were moving up the ramp and put a pretty epic beatdown on him with some crazy knee strikes and crashed him through a table to end the show. So what are your thoughts on the match itself and then the Ciampa heel turn afterwards?
The match I thought was awesome. Gargano taking the top of the ladder right in the face was pretty brutal. I expected, I don't know if that was gimmicked or whatnot, but that was one very destructive ladder shot. I liked everything they did. It wasn't a couple of the spots were a little bit over contrived for me, but for guys like Authors of Pain, who are relatively new to NXT, relatively new, and they put up a great match, and they're big dudes, but they're not like lumbering, slothing around the ring kind of big dudes, and Gargano and Ciampa can work circles around anybody, so I think they all really came together for a really strong match. And if they were going to go, I personally would have kept Gargano and Ciampa together longer. I think they have some legs. It's a really good tag team in WWE, and they have like a long career ahead of them, so I would have maybe done the split on Raw or SmackDown. That's just me. But I think you're going to get some outstanding matches between these two. And it's probably going to all play off the Cruiserweight Classic when they had their match there. So whatever it is with those two guys, I'm really looking forward to it. They could pretty much do no wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think these guys are going to have, probably their feud's going to be gold, I guess, as they say. And I think whatever they do, Ciampa, the reaction to him was I thought after the turn, I thought was pretty good, right? Crowd was pretty heated, pretty upset with him after what he did, which is good, right? That's what you'd want out of a heel turn, right? You don't want necessarily like one of those heel pops from the smart fans that like kind of when a guy turns, it's makes the babyface look kind of silly and everyone's cheering the heel. He actually got really good heat afterwards, so I think that shows that people really liked DIY as a team, right? Because they did, like you said, they put on great performances. All their matches were really, really good. People didn't want to see them split up, so I think the fact that Ciampa was the guy that did it and got himself a lot of heat should be a really good feud once they kind of ramp it up and get going with that. So what would you give the show overall, I guess, on our grading scale for the shows?
I'm giving it A. It's very, very close to an A+, but nothing bad, everything watchable. I've watched it twice so far. I'm definitely gonna go back and watch it again. It gets an A from me.
There you go. Yeah, I'm gonna go A-. I think it's a very good show. It's interesting you say you watched it twice. I was thinking about that. So I watched a few of the matches again on Sunday at some point, and I was thinking about how when I was younger, or back during like the Attitude Era, I guess, in that range, when I would order pay-per-views and I would record them on a VHS tape. That's showing my age, but I would record them on a VHS tape. And then I would go back and watch the pay-per-view, like the next day or the next night or something like that, just to see like what I thought of it, because they were good matches, it was good angles, stuff like that. And I really don't do that anymore with WWE shows, right? Like I'll watch them and like that'll be it. Now I'd never really go back and rewatch anything unless there's like a single match maybe that stole a show or something like that. But with the NXT shows, I find myself doing that a lot more frequently. Like I'll watch a Takeover show, and the next day I'll go back to the network and watch most of it, if not all of it, over again, just because I enjoyed it and I kind of wanted to rewatch and see how the matches were on the second viewing. So I think that's something about NXT that I think is a really good quality for me. It's like the rewatchability factor, right, where you can kind of go back and watch it again and enjoy it just as much the second time around.
Yeah, and there's so much to take in. There's always going to be something you miss, so it's good to sit down and watch it and kind of give it a fair viewing.
Yep. Speaking of that, well, actually, the opposite of that.
Yeah,
I guess.
actually, speaking of fair viewing, I'm not going to watch Backlash twice.
Yeah, yeah. I can't justify the Backlash, the double view on Backlash. That's a tough sell. Backlash was built basically around the debut of Shinsuke Nakamura. But before we get into Backlash, I just want to give a little shout out to our friends at the Damage 365 Radio Network.
Hey everybody, this is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and you are listening to Damage 365 Radio. And remember, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
And as always, you could find us in so many different locations right now, and most recently, ProWrestling.com. That's right, the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast is the official podcast of ProWrestling.com. So the exposure rates are through the roof. We're on where we're on YouTube, we're on Stitcher, we're on CompuServe. Where else are we these days?
Oh gosh, yeah, no, iTunes, right? Podcast app. I mean, Blog Talk Radio, Damage 365 Radio Network, ProWrestling.com. You name it, and the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast is there. That's how it looks these days, my friend.
Are we on AOL?
We are on AOL, Instant Messenger, dial-up modem, Netscape Navigator. We got it all, buddy. We got all the bases covered. It's Lotus 123. We're there.
Tremendous call on Netscape. It's been a very long time since I heard that.
Now compatible with versions IE 6 and above. That's where we're at. So Google Chrome, Firefox. We're there. We're all over the place. So people should check us out on any platform.
Sweet. All right. So yeah, I mean, let's just. There's a lot to talk about it in terms of Backlash. So let's kind of just give. I guess. Are we running late? I don't have. Not being. Listen. And for anybody sitting back there wondering why are these two schleps not doing what they usually do together, I have been busting my ass this week, buddy. I haven't had time to scratch my left cheek. I'll tell you that much. I'm finally get a day off tomorrow, but we got a busy weekend. We got House of Glory coming up this weekend. We do. Yeah, there's a lot going on, with this week in general. I'm trying to get a car so I can drive myself places, where, like you said, work, gym. You got a lot going on your end, obviously, with work, taking care of the house and the what do we call it? The Bark Brothers, I think, is that what we came up with? The Bark Busters? Yeah, the Bark
We're
Brothers.
still working on
The Bark Busters.
We're workshopping some things for the pooches. So there's a lot going on, but we got about like 20 or so minutes left on the show. I think maybe we can go into a little Backlash reaction here, and then we can talk about what we got coming up this weekend. You mentioned House of Glory, so maybe we can let people know a little bit about that at the end of the show and where they can find us and this weekend.
Before I know you and I have, I know we've been talking about doing some current events type stuff, some breaking news type stuff. Now, I want to talk about something very quickly. It's not WWE related. It's UFC related. So I'm just going to I want your opinion on something. You got this for me?
Yeah, sure.
Angela Magana. She's a UFC fighter. Her record stands at an 0-5 in the UFC. 0-5. She was on the reality show. She is most notable for posting very scantily clad pictures of herself and hanging out with Beck Hyatt, another female fighter in the UFC. Now, Angela Magana has taken it upon herself for the better part of the last 12 months to berate a certain Chris Cyborg Justino on Twitter, on Instagram, calling her a guy, saying she's got male genitalia, and most notably she had taken a picture of Cyborg and she had put it next to a picture of the villain from Saw, the little doll thing, and she said, who wore it better? So now, I'm not a doctor, Joe, but that would constitute cyberbullying. Am I right?
I would say that's fair, yes. That's not a good approach on her part, I would say.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what happens in the real world. over the weekend, the UFC had what they call a fighter's retreat, which is pretty much meant they brought a lot of the fighters on their roster to a place. I think it was somewhere in Vegas, and it was like 3 days. They were going over marketing with them. They had like Kobe Bryant talk to them. They were feeding them. They were giving them product X, Y, and Z, and it's a really cool thing the UFC does. Now, for someone like Angela Magana, who is a superstar behind the keyboard and in front of a camera, unfortunately, she's not so much of a superstar in real life. So Chris Cyborg, who I'm sure you're very familiar with, confronted Magana, and the video starts rolling. And I'm going to curse here for the sake of the video. The video starts rolling, and Magana says, "I could talk shit about whoever the F I want," directly in the face of Cyborg, like pointing her finger at her. So what does Cyborg do? She cracks her one. Straight right hand, right down the pipe, right in the face. She doesn't turn her hips into it, but she it's more like a slap with her fist. If she wanted to, she could have knocked her out. But now you got Magana. She's going around, and she called the cops on Cyborg, and she's pressing charges against her and trying to get her locked up on a felony. And I got to tell you, man, if you fight in the UFC and you have the cojones, or the female jones, that's a thing, to talk to another female fighter over the internet, and you're going to put her down and stuff like that, you got to be ready if she's going to walk up to you and clap you up in public. I hate what happened. I hate we're in this society where you can say whatever you want behind a keyboard, but there are no consequences in real life. You can't say that. Like, if I was berating Austin Aries every single day on Twitter for the last year, and I saw him at a show and he walked up to me and punched me in the face, guess what, Joe? I had it coming.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, right? I mean, if you're gonna go at somebody hard like that, I think regardless of what method you go about doing it, right? Whether it's over the internet or on the phone or in person or whatever it is, like, you should be ready to expect a response from the person that you've been dogging. Whatever type of response it is, whether it's verbal or physical, you should be ready for something like that. If you're gonna go with that approach of just berating somebody to that extent, and in that insulting of a manner, especially over the internet, when it's like, that's probably the most cowardly way to do it. So yeah, I think that's she probably it seemed like she got what she deserved. It seems like, based off of how she was acting.
Yeah, now she's posting these things like, she calls herself, her hashtag is Your Majesty. Literally makes me sick to my stomach. And now her hashtag is like, she's like, "Thank you, Cyborg, for this payday that's coming my way." But now the problem is, being your record is 0-5 at the UFC, that means you lost 5 times, and you lost every single time. That is atrocious. But now you have these female fighters who are friends with Cyborg, but they also don't stand for bullying. So now you have all these fighters, like, literally taking a number to bust this girl's ass. So they got me, Joe. I'm going to order whatever pay-per-view she's on just to watch her get her ass kicked one more time. She's a perfect heel.
Yeah, I'm not good with the numbers and the math, but I'm pretty sure that 0-5 is not a good winning percentage in any sport.
No, I mean, unless baseball, because if you get one hit after that, you're good to go. You're Hall of Fame, right?
No, that's something like that, but not exact. But yeah, no, when you're 0 for the century against whatever's going on, that's not a good look. So if you're 0-5 and you're talking crap, we need to that needs to be changed. So I'm glad in this case that Cyborg took care of business and got to the bottom of things.
Yeah, I just hope there are no ill effects. I hope she doesn't get arrested and stuff like that. I'm sorry to veer off. I know we're a pro wrestling show, but I feel like this is very topical right now. There's a lot of talk about it online. It's like those videos online, like the bully justice videos. Like, you look at a video, you watch this video, and like, this guy's picking on this little kid for like 25, 30 seconds. Eventually the kid snaps and beats the living daylights out of the bully. When I'm having a bad day, I watch these videos because it really perks me up. It gives me a reason to continue and carry on.
Hey, man, whatever works for you, buddy. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. We need to keep you going. We need to keep the wheels turning. And,
well,
you do what you got to do.
It's not working for me? Backlash. So let's get to Backlash.
so Backlash from this past weekend. So basically featured around the in-ring debut or the Smackdown Live in-ring debut of Shinsuke Nakamura. And they actually led off the show with the match of Shinsuke Nakamura versus Dolph Ziggler. So, as far as this match was concerned, I thought they did a solid match. It was good. And my comment on it to you, I think when we were talking about it, off air, was that Ziggler got in a little too much offense. I thought Nakamura did a little too much selling in this match. The idea I would have assumed was that it's Nakamura's debut. He needs to obviously look strong, and he won the match, so that's obviously good. But that he should, kind of hit all his high spots and look relatively dominant, without it being a total squash in victory. But there was a lot of false finishes with Ziggler hitting his big-time moves and Nakamura kind of barely kicking out and selling a lot. And, I don't know if that was the best way to really present Nakamura in his first match. I thought that they could have done a little bit better of a job in that regard.
Yeah, and you know what? If you didn't want to bury Ziggler in a loss because you have plans for him and Money in the Bank and stuff like that, then I think you probably should have done, given Nakamura somebody else, somebody that he can get not a quick win over, but even maybe 7 to 9 minutes, and he kind of hits all the hits, and people are more impressed with them than they are, because Ziggler's been on and off feuding with the likes of like Apollo Crews, and I don't even know. I don't even know who else he's feuding with, but you kind of pluck him from almost obscurity, and then you have him in a very competitive to dominating a match with Nakamura. It makes people look like Nakamura is not this killer that everybody thought he was.
Yeah, I think Apollo Crews and Kalisto, I believe, were the last any sort of significant feud for Ziggler, and both of those wrestlers are on the Raw brand now. So that goes to show, I guess, how much he's been featured recently. But yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe they could have done something a little bit different with Nakamura's in-ring singles debut. But we'll see. I mean, now they've got him in the Money in the Bank match for SmackDown at the next pay-per-view. So I don't know if he's going to be slated to win that, or if he's just going to kind of be a side player in that while somebody else gets a longer push. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. The tag team titles were on the line next. It was the Usos against Breezango. This match was interesting, I guess, for me in the sense that it was treated pretty much as comedy for the first half of the match, with Breeze dressed up as a janitor and then as a grandma. The last few minutes, things got serious as far as the match was concerned, and I thought the last few minutes were pretty exciting, and the crowd was definitely with it the whole way. The Usos ended up retaining the titles. I could have done without the heavy comedy early on, but I thought in the end the match is pretty entertaining, and I'm a fan of Breezango, so I can't really. I like the way that they seem to have good personalities, and they're both pretty good in the ring. So I liked this match kind of for what it was.
I love this match. I liked how they were able to slice the comedy, and they had funny parts, but then they were making it serious. It wasn't 100% comedy job. So I thought they did a really good. They had a good balance, and I loved. I forget who it was. I think it was Breeze when he kept Uso went up to the top rope and he kept rolling from side to side to side. I had seen that done before. I forget where, but that was very very funny and very creative. And I thought the match was good. I really, towards the end, I was really buying for the false finish, and I really thought Breezango was going to the title.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that they the way that it ended and some of the high spots and stuff at the end. So I hope that those guys continue to get featured on SmackDown, whether it's for the tag titles or in another feud. I'd like to see them continue on being featured on the show each week because they're pretty entertaining. Sami Zayn defeated Baron Corbin in a one-on-one match. It's about 15 minutes long. I was somewhat surprised by the finish of the match, but I thought they had a solid match. Nothing great. I thought that they had a decent match. I mean, I think both guys could have used a win, so they decided to give it to Zayn here. I don't know what their plans are necessarily long-term for either guy. I thought that Corbin would be a candidate to win Money in the Bank. He may still be. candidate to do that, but they went with Zayn here to get the win.
I like Corbin. I don't love him. I'm obviously a huge mark for the Sami Zayn, so I was glad we got the win. I was also glad that when he got the win, it wasn't a roll-up. He hit his finish. He kept the haluva kick strong, and he. I don't think. I mean, we have to ask an historian here, which I mean you. But has anybody ever kicked out of the haluva kick, Joe?
That's a good question. I don't remember if anybody kicked out of it in NXT at any point. I can't recall it happening, so I would say that if it has happened, it's been pretty rare.
So that's why I was glad to see that finish get the win. They're protecting it, and it means something when he hits it. So I think Sami Zayn needed the win more than Corbin did here. Corbin hasn't lost that much, and Sami Zayn put on the losing end of a lot. So it was good for him to get the win.
Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over the women's six-man tag match. I don't think there was too much there. The heels ended up winning the match, so there's just not really too much to say about that. The next match was Kevin Owens against AJ Styles for the U.S. title. They got a lot of time. They got over 20 minutes. I thought the match was good, very good. I think expectations for myself, at least, were a little bit higher for these guys, just given what they're capable of. Took a little bit of time for the match to really get going, but I thought the match was very good. The finish was a little bit. It was interesting. It was creative in the sense that I hadn't really seen something like it done before, but it's also kind of one of those count out finishes that leaves people wanting an actual legit finish. But Styles had Owens up on the announce table, and his foot slipped through. A spot where the monitor would be in the table, and he got caught up there, and Owens ended up winning by count out. So I understand they want to protect probably both guys and not have either of them pinned, which I mean, I'm okay with count out finishes from time to time. I don't mind that because, I prefer that Styles or Owens not get pinned or submitted here. You don't have to do that every single time. So I thought the match was good. The finish probably could have been better, but if they want to keep this going as a longer term program, then I think I'm okay with kind of how things played out here.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on a part of it. I think the finish was good because I feel like, well, actually, maybe I'm agreeing with you, but disagreeing with the finish. I think the finish was good. The countout was the right thing to do. Both guys looked strong. Owens kind of looked like a little bit of a douche, which is what they're going for. But I think if AJ or KO is going to take a pin or a clean loss, it should not be at a Backlash. And I think that's maybe what they're doing. Maybe you'll see them two rematch at SummerSlam, depending on who wins Money in the Bank. But AJ's not getting any younger, but he's still amazing, and I think he's actually only getting better as a performer. But get a title on him and leave it there. Bring legitimacy to the title and make people want to watch the show.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think when he was WWE Champion for about 4 months or so at the end of last year into the beginning of this year, it was a really strong period for that championship and for SmackDown, the show itself, with him, as basically the main event guy. That the show was kind of revolving around while John Cena was away. So I think that's, getting him in a spot where he can be featured as much as possible is the right thing to do. Luke Harper beat Eric Rowan next. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this match. It was kind of in a dead spot. It wasn't bad, wasn't great. It was just kind of okay, I think. And Harper got a win back from when Rowan beat him on SmackDown a few weeks ago. And then the main event, we kind of touched on that in the opening. It was Jinder Mahal beating Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. I mean, I would say the match had pretty good heat. The way that it started with Orton attacking Mahal before the bell rang. There was some interference, obviously, by the Singh brothers on the outside. Orton almost killed one of them, but with a suplex on the announcer's table. There was kind of a dead portion in the middle, but then it picked up again at the end. The Singh brothers had interfered and pulled Mahal out of the ring after he got hit with an RKO. And at one point, Orton was kind of distracted by them, and Mahal came up and hit the full Nelson Slam from behind on Orton, and somewhat surprisingly won the WWE Championship. So as a match, how did you feel this was in terms of quality?
To me, in terms of the physicality between them, I don't think Jinder's there. I don't think Jinder's main event level professional wrestler yet. I mean, his promos are great. He's on the mic. He's got a great presence, but to be able to carry a match, which a champion should do, me personally, I don't think he's got the tools just yet. Not that he won't, But I just think in terms of, like, the physicality, the aggression, the cleanliness of the match, I really wasn't impressed by it. And Randy Orton, he's, I think the word that you've used before is unmotivated, and I think it's pretty clear. Frankly, I was just hoping I could see more super kicks in that match.
Yeah, not enough dives, I would say.
Dive.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think on that, Mahal, it just seems like he's at a point where I don't know that he's improving as an in-ring performer at this point. He just kind of is what he is. So I don't know if he's gonna be able to step up his game.
Can you actually? I have a question for you, Joe. Can you name me one of his signature moves besides the full Nelson Slam? Not the full Nelson Slam. What is it, like a Cobra Clutch Slam?
Yeah, something like that. No, unless you consider playing air guitar when he was with 3MB a signature move. No, I cannot name a signature move for you for Jinder Mahal.
How about when he was snake charming the Cobra from Santino?
No, I do not recall. But I guess now we'll get the chance to see it, as we'll probably be subject to several Jinder Mahal matches on television for the next few months. So that will be entertaining. What's your grade on this show, buddy?
I'm gonna go C+.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go C. I think it was just the definition of average. I was not expecting a lot from it, so in that respect, I think it probably did a little bit better than what I was thinking it would do. But just overall, I would say it was an average show. Nothing really actively poor, but nothing really blow away that would make you say, "Oh man, you got to go back and see that," because there wasn't anything too crazy about it. We've got about 3 minutes or so left, buddy. Do you want to let everybody know where we're going to be this weekend on Saturday night at the House of Glory show over here in Jamaica, Queens?
Saturday night, we're going to be at House of Glory. We're looking at Cody Rhodes versus Anthony Gangone for the House of Glory title. We have Leo Rush versus Kenny Broadway. We have Red Dragon versus EYFBO, a.k.a. LAX. I am looking forward to this card, man. Also, TJ Marconi is going to be there, who I'm now a big fan of because of how nice he was to us last weekend at House of Hardcore.
Oh, there you go. That's right. So, yeah, it should be a good show. It's first time, I think, for us at a House of Glory show. House of Glory is Amazing Red's school, I believe, in promotion. It'll be over in Jamaica, and the card looks pretty good. I think there's also going to be an appearance by one Booker T, I believe, is going to be at the show as well, which would be pretty interesting. So I'm interested to see what the experience is like, I think, and if anybody is in the area and wants to go check out the show, go check out House of Glory and see if you can get some tickets available, and we'll be there, I think, near ringside. So if anybody's there and wants to come down and say hello, we'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be the guy wearing the Red Dragon shirt, marking my face off.
I may also wear a Red Dragon shirt. I'm not sure if that's going to make us look more, I don't know what the word is, markish than usual, but maybe we should just roll in with dueling Red Dragon t-shirts and see how that goes for us.
If only because we can't find a Top Guy shirt, I will be okay with wearing 2 Red Dragons.
Yeah, Revival needs to get on top of that so we can get Top Guy shirts, because I would pretty much just wear that every single day, including to work.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Dawson to get back to me.
I'm sure it'll happen in no time. Well, buddy, I think that's going to probably do it for us this week. I think we covered a lot of ground. I think next week, probably a lot of stuff that we're going to go over. I mean, Raw's got a pay-per-view coming up again soon. These things are coming fast and furious. We're going to talk. We want to talk a little bit about Impact too, so maybe we can kind of jump in on that bandwagon next week.
I'm going to go finish watching Impact right now, so I'll have plenty to talk about, buddy.
All right, buddy, that sounds good. Why don't you close it out for us?
At Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, All Night Long WP, ProWrestling.com, All Night Long Wrestling Podcast is on iTunes. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're on everywhere. My personal handle is at NYEnforcer if you want to talk to me about mixed martial arts or, late 70s, early 80s cartoons, whatever you want to do. Until next time, he is the Stallion, I'm the Enforcer, and we're tapping out.
A seatbelt can stop you from going into a store. A seatbelt can stop you from climbing a tree. It can stop you from flying or from rolling down a hill. A seatbelt can stop you from doing a lot of things, like crushing bones and damaging vital organs. It can even save your life. That's why we enforce seatbelt laws, to save lives. So buckle up every trip, every time. Click it or ticket. Paid for by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
This weekend, Old Navy's heating up your summer style with $2 tanks for women, girls, and toddlers. Get the season's hottest style essential at this year's hottest price. Just $2 tomorrow and Sunday at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. They won't last. Get there fast. Valid 527 to 528. Select styles only. Limit 5.